Welcome back again to another Innovation podcast. This is the Climate Change and Environmental Sustainability series. So my name is Wangeshi Karimi.
And my name is Bikora December. Man, that always catches me at
Why are you never ready to say? People need to know you're there. Let's make you famous. Time.
Yeah.
All right. So today we are going to be discussing sustainable development, and the reason we are going to have this sustainable development conversation in the climate change and environmental sustainability is because we have had very many people bring about the whole aspect of. So now you're saying if we plant trees and we do not mine oil, we are going to be among the brokest people under the sun. So why is it essential for us to understand the interrelationship between the economy, the social aspect, as well as the environmental aspect when it comes to growth and development of nations, individuals, yada 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 yada. That's what we'll be discussing today. And we're going to start with Bikora doing the best thing that she knows how to do, breaking down concepts into simpler and easier to understand concepts. What is sustainable development?
So the textbook definition again that we have from Dr. Cecilia about sustainability was that it's the ability of a generation to meet its needs using the resources that it has without compromising the ability of future generations to meet the same needs using the same
resources.
Yeah.
And before we had this discussion on sustainable development, we were talking about biodiversity.
And
we were
capacity.
saying how we interrelate with and interdepend with other species. That every species is important because
nature,
it plays a role, and also it helps you, with you playing your role.
Yeah.
And then we talked about carrying capacity. And we said even if every ecosystem and every species has its role, there's as much as it can do. There's a limit. And for you not to exceed its capacity, its carrying capacity, you need to watch out. And then now today we are going to be talking about how we're going to ensure that this generation uses what is enough and available just for this generation without risking the depletion of these resources
for the future generations.
Exactly. That is sustainable development textbook.
That is sustainable development textbook. And when we talk about sustainability, we are encompassing environmental factors, economic factors, and social factors. And then hapo katikati kwa the interplay is what is sustainability now.
You're doing that. There is circles. There is circles. So where the interconnect is where sustainable development is. So there cannot be economic development without the social development. There cannot be social development without the environmental development.
All of these factors are affected.
Yes, they have to. There's that interconnectedness that has to happen for there to be called sustainable development. And if you ask me, what is sustainable is what is able to kujitegemea. If I say I am a sustainable human being, it means that as an individual I am able to cater for my needs without the risk of depleting my resources. Just like that. Like I'm able to interact with my environment, with my money, with my people. You and I are able to interact without the risk of depletion.
I get that. As you talk about it, I'm just thinking of a closed system whereby think of this person living in the desert. They live in the desert. They are off grid electricity wise. They use solar. They maybe they abstract the water from the ground. Probably they went so much
oasis,
down. And then whatever water they get, they really utilize it kidogo kabisa, like Israel is, by the way. Oh, about Israel, I learned the other day that they literally reuse, is it some 80% or 90% of their wastewater goes back to irrigation. It's a dry country. They don't have water. So the little amount of water they have, they use it wisely, kidogo, and then the wastewater is used up for irrigation tender. So you can think of it as a closed system. You use your waste,
it goes round and round.
And I think that ensures that the resources we are consuming are not so much. You're ensuring the resources will be available for the future generations.
And some sort of regeneration. And we talked about the renewability of resources and how it is important to start with resources that are renewable because they are able to auto-generate. Yeah. So that is the conversation that we're having today. I feel like that was a very heavy introduction. So now let's get into what we call the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, the Sustainable Development Goals are 17 in number. They're definitely they're goals that see to it that we have both economic, not both, we have economic development, social development, and environmental development
because
all
one
at
can't
once.
exist without the other. You
Because
cannot
yeah,
develop economically if you're not using up the environment.
yeah.
You cannot develop socially if you're not consuming if you're not using up the environment. Yeah.
Yeah, so what are some of the sustainable goals that you like talking about?
Well,
Can talk
first
about all
of
of
my
them.
list, yeah, I'm most passionate about SDG 6, that is the goal about clean water and sanitation. We, as a, I want to say a globe, but then that would imply that maybe there's another universe outside there that exists. Maybe
And
there,
you think there's not?
I don't know. But but as a globe, as a whatever, we not we don't have complete access to clean water that is for everybody else living in the world. Not everybody has access to clean water. Not everybody has access to sanitation facilities, that we're talking about toilets and things in that line. So yeah, I'm passionate about that, and I'm in that field at the moment.
Yeah.
So like, I think it's very important for everybody to have this access to water,
Yeah.
and access to toilets. I
And
mean, that is
access
sanitation.
clean,
That is the
yeah.
basic sanitation. That's yeah, and that would solve so many issues.
Yeah.
Waterborne, water-related infections come about as a result of lack of water. Talking cholera, talking malaria is a water-related infection. Cholera, typhoid, all lack of toilets.
Those bilharzia.
Bilharzia, exactly. So it's really necessary if you are to achieve sustainable development. We have to ensure that clean water and sanitation is available to everyone. And I think actually access to water is a basic human right that was literally passed maybe recently. Access to clean water is a right, is a human right to everyone.
It
So I think that would go a long way in ensuring sustainable development.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like goal 1, 2, and 3. There's no poverty, zero hunger.
Zero hunger.
Let's find out. No poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being. It is important for every ecosystem to have people that are capable of living up to what their own needs. Yeah? And the only way people can live up to their own needs is when they're economically stable, number one, and that is where the conversation of zero poverty comes back. And people normally ask, how do environmentalists ensure the no poverty conversation? And we start by recognizing that there's some sort of economic valuation that has been put on environmental resources. Yeah, which is, let's just start with the barest minimum, parks. Parks. So parks are environmental resources that are given to us, by the environment. They are ecological resources given to us by the environment. Now, these natural parks, you putting a fee on the gate is valuing how much people would value to get in. Yes, to get into the park. It's very simple. So one, when we put up the parks and we fence them and we make them very habitable, put the animals there and everything, people should not look at it as a way for the government to just take ownership of these people, but they should look at it from a different point in view, an economic way to look at environmental resources. Now I know that sounds a bit far-fetched, but it is by extension some sort of economic way to ensure that these people that are living and cohabiting with these animals, somewhere in one way or the other, get their money. Get some sort of money. And then there's also the social aspect when it comes to the no poverty conversation. There is no way you can go, one person can become richer than other people. It is the way it is.
It
is that the 1% is richer than the rest of the other percentage. Wow, that's sad.
It's a huge percentage.
But it is a fact. But the truth is, the socio-economic aspects also come into play when it comes to the conversation of zero poverty. That for a community to get out of it, there has to be some sort of community alliances that happen. And then now the environmental factors in this play come into play. We have valued our resources. We've decided it is this way and this way and this way. So then now we can get money from it while we are conserving the environment and at the same time creating some sort of social bond. That is sustainable development. A community like that will grow together sustainably without depleting their future resources. Then we have the zero hunger one. It's the same one. And also when it comes to the conversation of achieving sustainable development goals in environmentalism, we normally talk about the carbon trading and the carbon markets. And we normally say that in this world, as an integration, we all are suffering the impacts of climate change,
Yeah.
but some of us have resources that can be used to mitigate this impact.
Yeah.
If you put money in our hands, we will yes. So let's watch that
Well,
podcast on carbon credits and
yeah.
carbon markets.
Yeah.
And we were talking about how trading happens with carbon sequestration and the production of carbon. And it is important to understand that that is somewhat way to ensure sustainable development goals
Yeah.
are achieved.
Yeah.
Good health and well-being. Very simple. A clean environment, good health and well-being. There was a study that was done in California that was saying that with the introduction of electric vehicles, even though they have always been continuously passed as carbon solutions, there are also some sorts of good health and well-being solution in the sense that there has been reduced respiratory attacks, reduced emissions, and with the introduction of electric vehicles in California, the zip codes where these vehicles were introduced, there was reduced asthma attacks and other respiratory diseases in the emergency rooms. So you see, by the end of the day, you breathe in clean air because there's very little emissions. So while we are fighting for environmentalism and environmental sustainability, we need to ensure that our call is not limited to environmental in itself, but also people are eating. There's that social sense where people are feeling at home. They can continue praying, playing.
Again. Nailed it.
Nailed it. They can continue praying and playing.
Yeah.
They can continue interacting amongst themselves, the
Yeah.
interpersonal interactions, and most importantly, that they can have money to put food in their table.
Yeah.
And that is where, why we normally, carbon trading is a very, I think, for me, I love the idea of carbon trading. I think I am a champion for carbon trading. It has, of course, its criticism and it has its bad sides.
Yeah.
So let's talk
But,
about
yeah.
another SDG.
SDG. So I mean, this podcast we are big on climate, so SDG 13, climate action, just actions to move towards mitigating climate change, living with climate change, just stopping the further spread, if that's a thing, of climate change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a study that was done that was saying that because of climate change, so many sustainable development goals, because these were development goals that we were to achieve by 2030. According to the blueprint, we were to achieve the sustainable development goals by 2030.
Yeah.
All of the goals that we had set we wanted to achieve as a continent, as a globe, we have been unable to as a planet, we have been unable to achieve these sustainable development goals because of the impact of climate change. Now, just to tell you, sustainable development goals are really like they are good goals. They are really good goals because we have mentioned zero poverty, we have mentioned no poverty, we've mentioned zero hunger. We've talked about clean water and sanitation. We also talked about good health and well-being, climate actions. There's others about life below water,
Clean energy,
and responsible consumption and production. They are good things. If we achieve them all, we'll be at a very sustainable point. But all of these achievements have been limited by climate change. With the introduction of climate change, our goal towards no poverty continues to become very difficult to achieve.
Facts.
Yeah. Our goals towards zero hunger becomes very difficult to achieve because by the end of the day, when climate change affects you, there is drought, then there's famine. People are not eating. These people are getting poorer every single day. So the conversation between sustainability, sustainable development, and climate action.
And that is where we bring in partnership between the goals. That is SDG 17, I think. Yeah, that is SDG 17.
Are we supposed to have got these things? Yes. So to strengthen the implementation of the global partnerships for sustainable
partnership
development
for the goals. They come together, they all play towards ensuring the sustainability of us I really want to say as a nation, but as a globe, as a planet, as a planet,
as the people and the organisms on Earth. People play an important role, and I feel like they don't know that. You and I play an important role in seeing through the sustainable development goals. You, Bikoro, I, Wangeshi. Yeah, I'm trying to use a very nice tone. We all play an important role in changing the narrative towards the achievement of the sustainable development goals so that we can ensure that we have sustainable development. And so factors like climate change should not be altering our ability to actually reach to those goals. And if they are, then we need to manage them. And carbon credits is me preaching for it one more time. Among so many other management of carbon and climate change solutions, we need to create societies that can be within themselves sustainable, be able to take care of this generation and not risk the depletion of resources for the future generation.
Yeah, and one would argue about when we were talking about climate change, we talked about the natural causes of climate change, but we also included our man, how we cause the climate change. And I feel like moving towards no, okay, we can't just resort to we can't do anything because this is natural caused. Since we are contributing to it as well, I feel like we can move towards we can move towards making this earth making this earth making this earth not have that problem. I mean, there's always going to be the natural factors, but if you are moving towards bettering it, then it won't cause as much impact as the combination between the two, that is natural causes and our. If we stopped contributing to it, then maybe the consequences wouldn't be as much.
And then the natural environment will be able to create some sort of barrier or some sort of cushion.
We say that nature is atrocious, not really atrocious.
Precarious. Capricious. Why do we do this?
That it's always going to be able to take care of itself. Yeah.
And it's unpredictability. You can't even tell. You can't tell. So that's what we're talking
tenacious is the word I was looking for.
Oh, yes. So nature is tenacious. Yeah.
That it's resilient enough to cause havoc and mend itself. That's the word I want to say. Yeah.
So what we're saying today is, for the sake of growth, development, economically, socially, and environmentally, we need to focus on the sustainable development goals and the sustainability.
Each one of us can actually contribute towards this. If you're using cleaner energy, if you're using water sparingly, if you can always do
even
something.
If you're just managing your bills,
yes,
even if you're not wasting your money,
you are contributing to this. And at the end of the day, rather do something small than do nothing at all. Yeah.
Common man is looking at us badly. With that, we end this podcast. Thank you very much for joining us. See you next time.
Bye bye.